All right, so happy Tuesday. Today I'm gonna do a share screen. I know just based on seeing kind of where everybody's at as far as modules, I want to make sure that this is one of the trainings you guys get. I want to make sure that this is one of the trainings you guys get while you're here. And Asia's on today. This is, I would say, maybe one of the major principles that has shifted her perspective since working with me. So we're talking about responsibility today, and like the autopilot and all of that. So I'm going to do a little short screen share training on that, just like I said, because not everyone is watching the modules. And so you get to get this part. And then we will do a little exercise. I'll have at least one volunteer, if not a couple, and then we'll do some open coaching. And Alex, I want to just make this note for you, but also for everybody that I'm really going to wrap a lot of what I teach today around some of what you shared in the chat, as well as, is Rima on? Yeah, Rima's here. So as well as Rima. So thank you guys for chiming in the chat and asking for support. And again, this is for everybody, but I just want you to know that if I were coaching you guys one-on-one, this would be one of the foundational tools that we would like anchor into and fall back on. And I see Charlotte and Asia are saying this is one of their favorite parts of her playbook. So I'm going to open us up in prayer, and then we will just jump right in. All right. Dear God, our creator, our source of just all things, God, I just thank you for bringing us here this Tuesday and allowing us to fellowship and do what I'm starting to feel like is church, God. I feel like we are constantly going to church when we choose to fellowship with other people who are being intentional about becoming their best selves and wanting to be the greatest version of themselves, because I feel like that's a sign of us just wanting to return to the essence of which you created us, God, before we started to be layered by societies and expectations and our upbringings and our life experiences and choices and regrets and guilt and shame and all the things that cloud our judgment of our truth and get in the way of our power, God. And so I just ask that as we learn level 4 responsibility today, and as we tap into what our autopilot is, that you speak through me, God, that it's able to be heard from a perspective from each and every one of the ladies on here, how she needs to hear it, God, that you will just remove me from it, that I'm just the vessel, just the messenger, and that it'll land on their hearts and their minds so that it can penetrate to a level that will yield results in their life, God. So I just pray for their circumstances, whether it's in their relationships, their finances, their communities, their friendships, their workplaces, God, that this perspective will shift every area of their life, God, that it'll shift how they show up in their life, and that you will just let them continue to anchor into this way of being and way of thinking. So I just ask that you bind up any distractions, that you will just allow us to be fully present, God, that you'll just allow us to open our hearts and our minds to take this in, and again, to just hear exactly what it is that we need to hear so that we can move the needle in our lives. I thank you in advance for the breakthroughs and the transformation that is already taking place, and that will continue to take place as a ripple effect for years and years and years to come as we continue to show up and apply this work. So we love you. We praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Cheryl, you made it. Hi. Good morning. Good morning. So I'm just gonna get my screen shared, and as I'm getting my screen up, I just want to excuse look at the devil already trying to get me. All of a sudden my cough is like lingering big time again. So as I'm bringing up my screen, I just want to share that, I just want to share that a reminder that this, oh my God, hold on. Thank you for sending that. I'm not even sure how to copy and paste. Okay, so I just want to share that a reminder that this work is work you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. So again, we don't arrive. It's a moment to moment, and every moment we have a choice to choose. Are we going to go left or right? And one second, Asia, if you're able, will you share why you love level 4 responsibility? I know they don't know what it is, but just tapping in, because I need to get my throat clear.
Yeah. I'm not on camera. I'm about to put Linux down, but I've been doing work with Crystal for 2 years, maybe. Charlotte, how long has it been? The very first her playbook.
Yeah, I think it's been two years.
It's going on 2 years. Yeah.
2 years.
So I personally I saw Crystal on Instagram, and I was interested in saving my relationship with my husband. And then she worked with professional athletes and just all those connections. But I had no idea what the work entailed. Like I thought it was like relationship coaching. Come find out it was everything I needed as it relates to like tapping into who you are, who I am. And one thing that I felt that was constantly coming up was playing the victim of pointing fingers or projecting or seeing like, well, I see how you created this, but now I want to see like how I created this. Or I can see, I guess I break down like how she broke down level 4 responsibility from my perspective was level 1 is completely blaming people for your fault. And most of us don't do that, like, because we're adults. And so we're not going to completely blame everyone. Level 2, which I believe most people kind of lean into level 2 is like, I can see where you go, like where you went wrong. And I can see my wrongdoing as well. So we both are trying to figure out how can you fix yourself and how can I fix myself. That's level 2, which most of us are in that because you could see your guys, like where he's going wrong, where you're going wrong, how it could be fixed or fixable, if that's the word. And then level 3 is like, okay, well, I'm wrong, like taking the responsibility of it's my fault. But level 4 to me, how I interpret it is a completely other new level, understanding that you created this just by being in the world. You have the power to co-create with God and understanding that everything on earth is your fault. And I absolutely love that because it took me on another level of responsibility. And even I'll just say last week, I had a situation where I was getting a procedure done at a hospital for my stomach. And I ended up, I didn't have the person there. I didn't read all the instructions. And I had, when you're doing anesthesia, you need 2 people, you need someone to drive you back. And what happened was I just read like briefly over it and just said, oh, you need a driver. So I communicated to my friend and I told her, hey, the procedure is about 3 hours and just come at this time. And she ended up like, when I got there, I found out that I needed the driver there at right before the procedure when I came. And I was just like, oh, I didn't know that. So I was pissed. Like I was so upset. But at the same time, it was my fault. Most people would have been like, well, the doctor didn't tell me, the nurse didn't communicate it. But as I was there, angry, sad, mad, I realized, I'm like, no, I created that. And as I walked out with tears in my eyes, I just thought to myself, how did I create this? And I created it in so many different ways by, at the end of the day, it just wasn't time for me to do it. And understanding that sometimes like it's so hard because most people, when I call my mother, when I call friends, they were like, what? Why didn't a girl come? Or why didn't a doctor tell you? Most people would have seen it as if it was an opportunity for someone to do it differently. But because I'm on level 4 responsibility, I'm like, no, it's my fault. I could have did this. I could have prevented this. And also, I just know God didn't want me to do it at the time, because I just had another therapy session, which was extremely intense, and I shouldn't have put my body through all of that. So I say all that to say level 4 responsibility is 100% taking responsibility for every single action, every single thing. Even when most people tell you, no, you got to look at him or look at the person. No, you always look at yourself and like, how did I create it? It makes you just take you to the highest level of being responsible. That's all I can say. It's like the highest level of being responsible and not making excuses for yourself, like totally up leveling yourself and who you are as a powerful queen that you are, a powerful being, and it just take you to another level. And so that's why I absolutely love it. And then I asked myself, like, what's underneath? Like, what's underneath whatever is happening? Like, usually it's something underneath what's not going well or going the way that you want it to go. So that's what I have. I hope I helped explain it, Crystal.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much. And I think it's always great to get it from different perspectives, because that's just how we learn. It's funny, I was just taking notes, and not just right now, but over the weekend, I was out like at a party, and I was like talking to someone, and I started taking notes. Like, I was like, you're such a nerd, but it was like something came through to my head. And what I was thinking of was, I was like, I feel like we are all knowing, like we were all born with divine knowing, like because we're connected to God. So there is no confusion that's of the devil, but we have to be reminded, because like by someone that we can hear, right? And so I think I shared that yesterday on Cloud 9. But what I mean by that is we already know the truth inside of us, but it takes us to hear it from different people in different ways and being explained different ways. This is why when you go to church, it's the same Bible, it's the same word, but you hear it different ways. It's presented different ways. It's different points in your life. And even that's how people repeat her playbook over and over and over. You see, Asia's been here for years, and she's still getting on these calls because today she'll hear something different because she's in a different place. And that was where I was going with remembering that this information is mind-blowing, in the sense that for most of you, you will not have thought of life this way. And I guarantee people around you don't think like this. And so once you learn this, it's one of those things that you can't unknow what you know, and you're not going to be able to unsee it. And so it's going to be hard not to think this way. But as you're putting it into practice, you're going to go in and out of this thinking. But the hard part is remembering that most people around you do not think this way. And in fact, about only 4% of humans are doing this conscious work. So 96% of people around us are living on autopilot, which is what we're going to cover. And autopilot is a different module than what I'm gonna like show you guys today, but it's got a lot of this same energy in it, and so it's all kind of combined, and that's what I'm gonna go over. So two things that I just want to piggyback behind what Asia said, because I'm big on language, is when you're looking at level 4 responsibility, it's not about fault. But I'm glad that Asia said that, because that's how our brain interprets it. So that's going to be a great way that I'm going to bring up what I'm going to say. So I just want to put that out there. And then wrong. It's not about being right and wrong, because we talked about this yesterday on Cloud 9 when we were coaching. Was it coaching? It might have been my one-on-one. It might have been my one-on-one. I'm not sure, but we were talking about being right and righteousness being one of my core autopilots. So I'm going to talk about righteousness and wrong. And fault as I teach through this. So I'm glad that that language was brought up, and I'll give you the distinctions between why it matters to shift our thinking. And so I want to point it out because we're so programmed to not mess up. If you think of a little child, and so if you look at this diagram that I have on the screen, if you see all the information coming into the face, right? There's what you see, what you hear, what you touch, what you're experiencing. It all has to come into your brain. So if you look at the top of your brain cannot handle all the simulation that's happening 24/7. If you think of what, like right now, if you were to stop, there's traffic maybe outside, maybe it's raining here, maybe you hear the waterfall, maybe you hear dogs barking, there's sirens, there's kids downstairs, there's water running, there's toilets flushing, like there's so much happening all the time. Your brain can't process everything coming in. So what it does is it deletes, it distorts, or it generalizes. So when information comes into your brain cannot hold it all. So it has to do one of those three things. Well, how does your brain do it? This is what separates Asia from Crystal, from Charlotte, from Khadijah, from Rima, and I only see a few of you guys on my side, so I'm just naming those who I can see. But this is what separates us: perspective. Perspective is reality. So if you have not learned that, I learned that back in psychology, but when I learned that, it stuck with me because it made so much sense. This is why humans are different. This is why I can be triggered about something and be like, did you see what that waitress just did? And you'd be like, what? Huh? Like, I didn't even notice, because we all distort different things. So when information comes through to your brain, it's going to interpret what it's seeing, hearing, and experiencing based on the time and location, your mood, your programming as a growing up, how your parents taught you. So like, for example, if a white person is brought up a certain way versus a Black person, you're going to experience a third party walking by based on the way you were brought up to stereotype that person, or based on if you grew up in, a dangerous neighborhood versus a suburb neighborhood. So based on memories you have, your circumstances growing up, different values and beliefs. So religion plays a part. Based on if you're super religious in a certain realm, and then you go and you see a girl who's wearing something, you're going to probably judge her as XYZ because your programming is saying that's bad, that's wrong, right? So all of what makes up our reality, how we hear what people say, how we experience what happens, it's all based on what's happening in our subconscious brain. And the subconscious is developed by these things that you see right here, the time and location, all those things. So a quick example of that is if you go to the gas station in a suburb area during the daytime, you might be on your phone, you might be multitasking, getting gas, but if you go to a gas station at nighttime in the middle of the hood, and you know that there's sirens around, and it's just a little bit more dangerous, and there might be suspicious people walking by, they may not even be suspicious, but they might be the same people that were walking by earlier in the day in the suburb, but now you're suspicious of them because of the time and the location and the mood. So that is just a perfect example. Another example of this that I love to share that brings this to life is when someone gets a car. Let's say someone in your family gets a G-Wag. Now all of a sudden you see G-Wags everywhere. Or someone in your family gets, like some whatever it is, then now you start to see that. Well, this is why manifestation works. This is why vision boards work, because once you put it in your mind's eye and you say, I want a G-Wag, you're going to start seeing G-Wags everywhere. You're going to start seeing opportunities to create G-Wags. When you say, I am looking for or I'm not going to do something physical. I'm going to give you guys an example of a belief. So if you have a belief that that nobody loves you, okay? Or life is so hard, or everything has to be a struggle, then in life circumstances, that's where you're interpreting things, because your brain is so powerful. It's constantly collecting evidence to match up with what's in your subconscious. So this is where that what's it called? The lottery syndrome comes from, where if in your subconscious brain, you were brought up to say, money doesn't grow on trees, we have to struggle, we're poor, then if money comes into your reality, you're going to find every way to create the evidence to match what your subconscious brain, which is, I can't have money, which is why people who often win the lottery, or athletes who come from nothing and step into all this money, it's often gone away, because they have to match up their subconscious brain to their conscious brain. And anytime your subconscious brain doesn't match your conscious brain, there's conflict. And your subconscious brain's job is to keep you safe and comfortable. But the problem is your subconscious brain doesn't know the difference between comfortable, as in like, I want to live in a beautiful, comfortable home, versus comfortable as in familiar. Your brain knows familiarity, not true comfort. So if you are familiar with struggle, then your brain is constantly going to look for struggle, because that's comfortable, it's familiar, even though consciously we know no one wants to struggle. So this is why I tell you that the A in play, awareness, this level 4 responsibility / autopilot, will transform your whole life. Because when you realize that everything in your reality, everything you're hearing is because of your belief system, then you have the power to start shifting your belief system and reprogramming. And so where we go into the program is we start to anchor into your true identity in Christ, your true identity in your creator, your identity in, I am perfect as I am. I don't have to struggle to be successful. I can rest and still have abundance. You can start to reprogram these beliefs. And then now when struggle comes your way, you can start to say, no, this is my old programming. I'm no longer available for that. And then you can choose to shift the circumstance. So why this is so important is because as we talk about information coming in, and I want to use these examples of like Alex, who put in our group chat about, struggling with building community and struggling with feeling appreciated and valued by her community. There's somewhere in her limiting beliefs, there's somewhere in her belief system that says she's not supported, and there's somewhere in there, and I will show you some exercises to help you actually identify what those limiting beliefs are. But over time, I want you to start paying attention, not just Alex, but all of you, to what is underneath this. So we don't want to just get over things so when information comes in and you're like, oh, I'm triggered, you don't want to just get over it and be like, whatever, that person ain't shit, I'm going to cut them off, or they don't even care about me, so I'm just cutting everybody off. That's a limiting belief, because that's not saying, how did I create this trigger? So going back to fault, asking the question, how did you create something, does not mean it's your fault. Like, you know what, I'm going to release blame from everybody else, I'm just going to carry this burden on my back. It's not that. It's actually saying, what belief is operating that's causing me to collect the evidence that this is the truth? Because when you ask that question, then what happens is you can stop and be like, this is where learning to communicate comes in. Because let's say, I'm trying to think of a recent example where I can like really like spell it out for you. But let's just say, okay, it'll come to me. I'm going to move on and then it'll flow through. But so some of this stuff is in the module. I'm not going to go through all of this, but I want to, I'm going to like skip through a couple of these slides. So the reason why intention over mechanism is so important is because intention is 99% of life. Mechanism is only 1%. And what that means is, and I think that was this past, or you can say mechanism or circumstance. So what mechanism or circumstance means is we focus so much energy on the thing outside of us, the person, the place. So we'll blame the weather, we'll blame the family member, we'll blame the partner, but that mechanism or circumstance is only 1% of the problem. 99% of the problem is, where was the intention coming from? How did you create this? And so like I was sharing with them yesterday in Cloud9, and I'll share with you guys here, because you said yes to this program alone, you said yes to learning and growing. So it's just like we were using the example of Asia's pastor, Stephen Furtick, how he did a sermon on, he's like, ooh, when people pray for patience, I just like, ooh, you don't know what you're praying for, because you're going to be tested to utilize patience. So when you turn this on and you start to look at life from how did I create this, it's not about finding the fault. It's saying, what was my real intention underneath it? So here's an example that I'll give you for this. Being late. So let's say I were to get on get to my location 20 minutes late, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I got in the car and then I forgot my keys. So then I had to go back all the way upstairs. And then when I got in the car, I spilled something on myself. And oh my gosh, then when I get on the road, of course there was traffic. So I'm just so sorry I'm late. Excuse, excuse, excuse. Circumstance, circumstance, circumstance. The real thing is there's a reason why you were late. You either don't value where you were going, you don't feel worthy of being there, so you had to sabotage your rapport with that situation, and showing up late was a form of sabotage. There's something always deeper. So when you're asking yourself, how did I create this? You're getting underneath the circumstances that happened, and you're saying, I'm responsible. There's actually a reason, because let me tell you this, guarantee if you had a flight to catch to your vacation, ain't no missing keys and spilling this in traffic. At that point, that's just divine order that you weren't meant to be on that plane. But I guarantee you would have done everything in your human nature to be there. So when you're not, you better believe there was a reason why you weren't. Always. And so when you can go through life and realize that there's always a reason why something goes the way it goes, it's always in your best interest. It's not about, this is my fault because I didn't get my keys. It's like, no, there was something deeper. And if you start to look at life that way, you'll start to identify those blind spots that I promised you guys would get going into her playbook. And so the reason why that's so important is because this is where we start to identify what's really creating our autopilot. And I call it autopilot because you were programmed like this. And if you don't take the second to dig underneath it and evaluate it, then it'll just keep running you. So there's limiting beliefs that come up. So different forms of sabotage are being inconsistent, procrastinating, doubting yourself, giving excuses. So next time you notice yourself giving excuses for why you're late, I want you to change it to, why was I really late? What was I afraid of something? Did I want to sabotage my impression to the people that I'm there? Is this not I'm late often to family things, and it's not really an impression for me. For me, what I realize is it's because I have a belief that I'm always late. And so I always self-prophesy, I always fulfill my own prophecy, because that's just a belief. And when I started saying, no, I'm not always late, I'm going to be that girl that people remember as a time ninja. When I go down in history, people who have known me will say, Crystal didn't play. She was always on time. That's how people will remember me. That's how I'm reprogramming that belief. So now I'm not available for being late. And when I'm late, I get on myself and I learn okay, next time you need to set 4 alarms. And next time you need to get your clothes out the night before. And next time you need to do XYZ, you need to do lunches the night before, because I want to be on time. So you start to dig underneath and you start to understand. So as you do the modules of identifying your autopilot, what it is you're going to start to pay attention to what are your go-to ways of being. So for me, my autopilot are disconnection, disassociation, righteousness, and selfishness. So right now in this season, I'm manifesting or creating a lot of opportunities to not be selfish. So I'm getting it from my husband. I'm getting it from friends. I'm getting it from my kids. I'm hearing it over and over. I could easily be like, how dare you call me selfish? Everything I do so much stuff for you guys. But if multiple people are calling you selfish, there's an opportunity for you to look at yourself in the mirror, Crystal. Disconnection. I lose things. I get flighty. I I can disassociate. So those are my autopilot. You have to start to pay attention to what are your go-to coping mechanism. For some people, it's fight and flight. For some of you, it's like, boom, you're always fighting. You're always arguing with someone. You're always popping off on somebody. That's one of mine too. It might be flight, like you cut people off, you isolate, you go into your own. It might be judgment, like you start to compare yourself and just talk about other people and put all the focus on what other people are doing. For some, and we all have all of these, by the way, but you'll notice that some of these are more prevalent, and you want to start to identify them. And you'll notice them because they become your coping mechanisms for triggers. So as you're noticing your triggers coming up, you start to look at what is your go-to way of operating in those moments, and then you'll start to like experience it. So what level, I'm going to go through the levels of responsibility, and then we're going to activate this through an exercise. So this is just an example of when I say like, and hold on, let me go backwards. I'm going to start with them and then I'm going to do the example. So level 1, like Asia was explaining, is life is happening to me. I'm a victim. Woe is me. You're always talking about what other people did to you. Why is my mom like this? Why is my friends like this? Why do they always, you use language like people never care about me. People never do anything for me. I'm always being left out. I'm always being taken advantage of. It's just so frustrating. Life is just, that's level 1. Like life is happening to me. I'm a victim in the circumstance. Level 2 is sometimes it's me, sometimes it's them. I know the difference. I know when it's my fault. Like I'll take that one to the chin. That's me. But they need to do their part. Level 3 is I'm just responsible. Like I'm going to focus on my part. And the difference between level 3 and level 4 is like everything I'm the creator of. It's like I look at life as a video game. It's like I don't look at life as God is in the sky and he's looking down like, good job today, Crystal. You didn't cuss anyone out. Yeah, yep, good job. You're okay, a couple more points. You're getting closer to a bigger room in heaven. Like that's not how I look at life. I look at life like God created us. We are divine extensions of this body of Christ. We are all one. But we come into the earth side in this body as one soul. So we're all extensions of the same place, thing, essence, because God is an essence. God isn't this man in the sky. God is powerful. God is divine. God is love. God is light. God is everything. And I don't mean that in an esoteric woo-woo way, like God is this and that. I don't mean that. I believe that God just is so powerful that when God created the heavens and the earth, he did that in 7 days, right? And then his job was done. He said, all right, now it's time to go play the game. You're in the video game and you have free will to say, do I want to ride my car left? Do you want to ride your car right? And you always have a choice to play the game how you want to play it. But what we do is we start to blame everyone around us. We start to say, God, help me. And God's like, I helped you. I created beautiful land. I created beautiful people around you. I created resources. I created knowledge. I gave you the book. God did God's part. So truly, prayer to me is a shift in perspective. God, show me where I'm not seeing what I already know. God, show me what I'm missing here. Show me, why is this person making me crazy all the time? Why am I feeling so lonely? Why do I feel like my community is not vibing with me? They're not giving me what I give them. Why do I feel like I can't catch a break? Asking those questions is how we pray for God to show us, and then waiting to listen. So level 4 is like, no, I'm not going to focus on my man. I'm going to ask myself. And I gave this example, but I don't know where, so I'm going to just give it again. When in my circumstance with my marriage, I realized where I was not practicing level 4 responsibility like I teach, because I had hit a crossroads where I was at level 2. Like, most of the time I can see where this is my problem, but this is him. Like, for sure, hands down, this is him. And then guess what? It made me righteous, because I got righteous about, nope, he's wrong, I'm right. And when you make somebody else wrong, you will instantly put them on defense. And when someone goes on defense, they don't hear anymore. They are just defending their side of the story. So level 4 responsibility allows you to put yourself in other people's shoes so that you can see things from their perspective, because remember, perspective is just reality. And so a quick story that I want to give you to like anchor this is, before we move into this exercise, is when I was reading the book Mary Magdalene Revealed, which I think I shared it a couple of weeks ago. She was telling this story how she went somewhere and there was like this picketer outside saying, if you're gay, you're going to hell. And he was like chanting it in front of this building. And she said she was irate, like, you are disgusting. And she went off on him, like, you're disgusting. Like, you should go to hell for judging these people that, like, you don't even know God is love and God wouldn't condemn these people. And you are just, you're a disgrace to Christianity. And this is why people don't want to know God, because of people like you just out here judging. And she just went, she's like, you look like your house smells like cats, and like you're lonely and you need to go back to your lonely house, you like sucker. Like, she just goes off on him, right? I'm of course paraphrasing my memory of the book. And so she says, so this is the level 4 responsibility moment, in my opinion. She says when she goes home, it hit her. And she was thinking, she's like, I was just as right about my point of view as he was right about his. Like, I want you guys to think about that. Like, let that sink in for a second. I was just as right about my point of view, making him wrong, as he was right about his point of view, making people who are gay wrong. And when you really put that in perspective, you can see why we have war, why there's religion war, why there's money war, why there's political war, because we just want to be right. It's not about whose fault is it. It's not about I'm right, you're wrong. I do believe in right and wrong, as in it is wrong to kill somebody. But this is where in the season of life that I'm in, I'm not going to deny that I'm questioning that we may have missed the mark somewhere in misinterpretation, that the vengeance is meant to fall on our hands. I don't know. Like, I don't know what I believe about that, because sometimes I think, like, we'll just put it like this. Like, if you're killing somebody in self-defense, you know, I'm not gonna say it was right, but you did what you had to do to save yourself in that moment, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, there's exceptions to the rule. So I'm not saying I don't believe in right and wrong. I believe there's things that you just don't do, but it's not about, we're talking about opinion, perspective. We're not talking about moral judgments and like good character. We're talking about opinions and thought processes. So when you're in level 4, you're looking at, how did I create this? What beliefs am I operating from? How am I interpreting this? And when you're arguing with a partner, you can step back and you can sit in their shoes and you could be like, okay, so it's like the example that I gave, I think yesterday on Cloud 9, where I was saying my friend was mad at me for not answering my phone for like 3 hours, but I was not answering because I was lost in conversation. And I was just like, like, oh my gosh, like not paying attention to my phone. So I was not wrong because I didn't think about it. Legitimately, my brain did not think to check my phone. But if you look, I was mad at her for being mad at me. And I'm like, how are you going to be mad? I didn't even think about it. So now I'm being right. Like, you can't be mad at me. Don't be mad at me. I didn't do anything wrong. So now we're battling points of view. And she was like, I can't be wrong. I was being a good friend. You could have been getting hurt. Right? So we're both right and we're both wrong. So when you fight for right and wrong, you're going to lose because someone has to lose. And if you're in relationship with a partner, why do you want your partner to lose? You don't. Why do you want them to be wrong? You don't. So it's not about right and wrong. It's about, is this working for me? How did I create this? So I'm going to go back to this example, and then we're going to bring this to life through an exercise. But this is just like cause and effect, where it's like when it rains, right? We will be like, oh, good. Thank God it's raining because we needed a rain. Like, God knew what we needed and God just put the rain. No, scientifically, like the water evaporates, it goes up and then it comes down. Like, there's a cause and effect to rain. Right. And then so a way to look at responsibility is getting cheated on. So I use this example because this is common for many women who come through her playbook. When you are looking at like a cause of like, how did I create this from a point of perspective, and you're looking at your partner, level 4 responsibility doesn't mean it's my fault. I created this because I wasn't pretty enough, or I wasn't cooking enough, or I wasn't having enough sex. It's not created that. It's saying it's way deeper. It's like I attracted a partner who is not respecting me, or who doesn't respect himself, because I probably have that brokenness. So or perhaps you did cause it, in the sense of you were breaking down your man, and you were emasculating him constantly, and you were disrespecting him constantly, and you guys don't have trust, and you guys aren't dating each other anymore, and the sex is out the window. So all these things are happening, that there could be some cause and effect, for the simple fact that he got caught slipping when he was out at work or out with friends, and some girl caught his attention and just was like googly eyed and all present, and he just got caught slipping. So it's not your fault, but it's what hand in the pot can I hold on to look at where I played a part in this? That's what that is, right? So instead of just being like, men ain't shit, like, no, I'm about to leave this, and then you just exit left, if you never look at your part in it, and you never look at where you can learn from the circumstance, you'll just probably go and attract that same pattern. So it's not about letting him off the hook. He was wrong. I don't care if sex was out the window, she didn't cook, she emasculated you, you had no trust. It is never okay to cheat. So it's not about fault and letting people off the hook. It's just about controlling what you can. You cannot control or change another person. So you got to channel your energy into what you can control, and you can control how you respond. You can say, God, why is this happening for me? Not to me, but for me. Everything is happening for you. And then the last example is like success versus failure. So like if you fail at something, you can say, I didn't, like, the cause was I didn't come from much, but I'm gonna break that cycle. And that's a direct result of your choices, your actions. So you're looking at like, okay, because of my autopilot, I constantly am going to keep myself in this grind cycle until I override that and look at that, versus I didn't come from much, so this is just how it's always been. Like, this is how my life is, and you just accept it for what it is. That's level 1 responsibility of like, well, I grew up broke. That's just how we are. I wasn't as fortunate as you. I didn't marry an NFL player. I didn't have that privilege, versus just saying like, no, I'm self-sabotaging right now, and I got to get up and I got to make it happen. So I'm going to stop my share, and I want to ask a couple of people, what are you hearing? What questions are coming up? What's going on for you, before I set the stage for an example that I like to do that really helps anchor this in.
Are we taking turns, or can I just
Go ahead?
So I think that's like speaks really true to like kind of what I'm going through right now. With like applying to med school, right? Like I should have submitted my application in May when it opened, but I was like, oh my gosh, I'm moving from DC to LA. Like I need more time, and I submitted it in October. But like subconsciously, like I knew it was a little too late. And then now programs are like, oh, if you like submitted a little earlier, it would have been okay. But I think really what I was feeling deep down was, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I'm not smart enough for this, or, what have you. And I've been really like talking to God about it. And of course, I still want to do it. And I think that's my purpose in life. But like this time around, like I need to be more cognizant of like me messing myself up.
Yeah.
And not blaming like the move or,
Exactly. Beautiful example, because it's one of those things where it's like, for every person who's like, well, I have kids, so I can't focus on my dreams, you have women who are focusing on their dreams and have kids. So it's like there's always a way around it. It doesn't mean that it's not possible, and it doesn't, it just, so I love that example, because it's just showing that there's always something underneath it. If you wanted that application in, the human spirit will get that application in, period. So anytime you don't follow through, and this is I live by this now. I live by this. Like, like down to everything. Like if I don't end up going to something that said I was going to go to, I know I was like, I was probably not going in the first place, but I'll notice that I want to tell the person like, oh, well, my babysitter this, or like, notice how many times you want to lie about things and like tell little white lies around getting out of something instead of just being honest. Like, I don't want to go, or I don't feel like being there, because we're such people pleasers. And then what happens is when you start to lie, this is a great example of friendships. So you'll say something like, well, like this, so, okay, I'll give a real example. This happened to me over this Super Bowl weekend. I felt conflicted because I wanted to hang out with my brother and his girlfriend, but I also wanted to hang out with my friend. And then my best friend was supposed to come in. And so I started noticing that I was like leading them on, like, oh, okay, what's the address? I'm going to come meet up with you guys. And I'm like, oh, we ate lunch and it ended late. And it was like, it did, but I could have made it because lunch didn't have to end late. If I wanted to be there, I could have got out of lunch and not talked for as long as I did. So I noticed where I was using those excuses. So because I know this work, I nipped it in the butt. I'm like, no, I'm out of integrity. And I just said, hey, I need to be honest with you. I want to hang out with you guys, but I want to be over here more. Like, I don't feel like being the third wheel. I just want to be with my one friend for the weekend, just have a good time, just the two of us. And that's what I really want. But I'm noticing that I'm dragging you on because I don't want to give you the impression that I'm like choosing her over you guys. And so once I was honest, it severed, because what I was going to get at was what happens when you tell those little white lies, like, oh, I couldn't make it because da, 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 da. It's like, there's something always underneath it. So if you don't get underneath it, relationship will feel the disconnect. They'll feel the lack of alignment. So I started feeling the energy between my sister-in-law, where she was just getting more short with me and things were shifting. And so that's how I was able to say, how did I create this? Instead of being like, she's a B, and why is she talking to me like that? Like, how dare her? I didn't even do anything to her. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was being dishonest, very slightly. It's very slick. It's very slick. So the more you learn to catch up on, okay, my friends are moving different. Okay, my family member has an attitude. Okay, my man is being short. How did I create this? Not what's wrong with you. Like, it's nice to ask them, are you good? Like, I'm noticing that you're short. Are you going through something? But when you know you played a part in it, it's looking in the mirror and saying, what did I contribute? Was I dishonest? Was I being a people pleaser? Was I, all these different things. So this level 4 responsibility comes up everywhere. It's always present. It's when you want it to be. If you ask the question, like, I geek out on this. I'm always like, how did I create this? I got a flat tire. What, like, where did this, like, I read into everything kind of to like a fault. So anybody else want to share before I set the context of this exercise?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I relate a lot of this to my work life right now, because ultimately, like, I like the population I work with, but I hate my job itself. And so I'm supposed to be at work at 7. I get to work at like 8:30. And just because I don't want to be there, ultimately I just don't want to be there. So I guess I'm struggling with blooming where I'm planted and just being in a place where I just don't want to be.
Yeah. So I love this question, and I wish I could remember the book, but I don't. I think it's a Marianne Williamson book, but I remember. So okay, I'll get to that because I want to set the stage of that. So blooming where you planted is what I want to get to with her book. But what I want to say first is, first things first. When you are at a job that you are out of alignment with, like, it's not your calling, don't expect to be comfortable. Like, we've got to be honest with ourselves. God is not going to allow us to just be complacent in a situation we're not supposed to be in. So when we're getting broken down somewhere, there's always a breakthrough. And this is what level 4 responsibility looks like. It's in breakthroughs. Like, if you guys take nothing else from her playbook, I want you to walk away celebrating breakdown. Like, I'm the girl that, like today, me having a cough attack, I'm like, okay, devil, come try me. Like, let's go. That's just because I know I'm about to put these girls on game that's going to change their life. So you're not about to stop my voice. Instead of being like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this today, and then just giving up. No, I know that's opposition. I put him in his place, and then you see he got behind me, and here we are. But we will cave before because we let the breakdown take us out. Why did this happen to me? So what I'm getting at is, in your job, whenever you're in a position that is like challenging you ask yourself, how did you create this? In the work that I do, I hit breakdowns too, but I see them, because I know I'm on alignment, I see them as God pruning me. Like, God's like, you're not mature yet. You're not mature yet. Where I want to take you, you need to learn this lesson. So I'm going to break you down so you can learn this lesson. But that's because I operate from a place of breakdown, breakthrough. When I'm in breakdown, I don't look at, well, that person is dead to me now, or they should have, could have, would have. I look at, okay, what am I supposed to learn? What's the lesson for me? So I just continue to evolve and to grow. So in your job, number one, first and foremost, is you get to get underneath, why are you still in that job? Why are you still choosing that job? What are you afraid of? Are you afraid to take the leap and go take a bet on yourself in your dream job? Is it because you feel like you're not worthy of doing something different? Like, you need to be honest with yourself, because there's a real thing, is like Oprah said this, she says, do what you have to until you do what you want to. Right. So there is a season sometimes where you got to work a job. And so this brings me to blooming where you're planted. In this Marianne Williamson book, she talks about exactly this. She talks about being in a workplace and constantly complaining. She's like, it's like doing dishes. She's like, if you know you have to do dishes every single day, why would you go approach the dishes with stress and, I freaking hate the dishes and freaking dishes, and you're like getting worked up over dishes? Like, they're not going anywhere. So instead, she's like, do the dishes with joy and gratitude. Like, wow, I'm grateful that I have a sink. I'm grateful that I have soap to wash these dishes. I'm grateful for this food that nourished my body, that caused these dishes to be in the sink, and do it with a heart of gratitude, she said. So she used that example in the workplace. And she's like, if you're in a job where you hate it, you better know that that's temporary, because that definitely is not where God is going to keep you. But while you're there, you better represent God appropriately. Be joy, be love, be light, be on time. Because if you can't show God that you're on time to this job you hate it, but you don't hate it that much because you're still letting it pay your bills. You don't hate it that much because you're still there. So if you don't show God that you can have integrity in a job you hate, why would he bless you with a job you love? And so she says that in this book. She's like, everything is a test. Everything is testing your character, your integrity, your word. When you break your word with yourself, you are not going to be trusted with bigger blessings. So it's one of those things of like you're saying you hate a job, but there's meanwhile people who, and I'm not judging you, like, girl, like I hope you hear me, but I'm giving you the raw, like, step back feedback of it. It's like, you're hating a job that someone would die to have. You're hating a job that's paying for bills. You're hating a job that paid for you to be into this program. You're hating a job that is providing for you. So now what you get to do is be grateful for that job. I guarantee if you show up now from this point forward on time with a grateful heart and a servant heart of like, God, show me why I'm in this place. Change your prayer. What, show me every day. We pray. I actually learned this from my mother-in-law. She would say before she would go into work every night, God, help me get through this because I do not want to be here. These people work my nerves. So show me what you want me to know today in this shift. Pray that prayer. God, how are you going to use me today? Shift my heart. I know I'm saying I hate this job, but I'm grateful for this job. God, I actually am. Thank you that it's paying my bills. Thank you that I'm here. So show me who are the people that remember what I told you last week. You're a light. You're chosen to be there. So you want to go change the whole world. You better change the ones that are right in front of you. It's like we say we're going to give. We say we're going to give when we get millions of dollars. If you're not giving now, you're not going to give later. So if we want to change lives, you want to have a community, you want to have a platform, then start right now. Start practicing on the people right around you. Start asking God to show you how he wants to use you. So that's how you bloom where you're planted. It's a grateful heart. And it's asking God, why am I here? I don't like it here, God. So I know you have me here for a reason. So prune me. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I embrace the pruning. And this is where life changes. This is why people, like I was just talking to a girl yesterday who was like, what she said when she first met me, she asked my mom, what is she on? Like, what drug is she on for real? Because I need to be on what she's on. I'm like, I'm calm because I've learned to master controlling what I can. And I can't control most things. And I can't change most things or people. So I don't stress out. When things are breaking down, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. It's a blessing on the other side. Let's go. Let's go. I already know, like, what does it say? The battle is already won. So when you go into breakdowns with that mentality, there's no need to be flustered. And it's like, no, I already know I'm about to win. Yes, feel the feels, be frustrated, be sad, be angry, be all the feelings, but you're not defeated. So you go into it with a, like, oh, okay, bet. Like, oh, you want to try to take my voice? Okay, watch. That's why God put Asia here. Because she's going to speak for me. Like nothing's going to stop us. But some people would just crumble, right? So anybody else before I should transition us? Anybody want to share or ask anything? And thank you for these questions. These are great questions. I do want to, I do, this is coming up just because I want to speak a little bit more into your situation, Rima, with your relationship as far as what you shared. This is where I was telling you the hall pass is going to be magical for your relationship, because like now that you're learning the level 4 responsibility, it's like, I want you to heighten, and I want all of you guys to do this, but I want you to heighten your level 4 responsibility. Every time you're in frustration with your man, I want you to say, how did I create this? Like, where's my hand in the pot? What's the lesson for me here? And ask God, like, God, show me why am I frustrated right now? Why is this happening? And then God will start to reveal it to you. And while he's revealing it to you and you're working on your part, it's going to naturally shift the atmosphere of everybody else connected. And then what happens in relationships, and this is where, yes, people come for relationship support, but it's not a guarantee that the relationship is going to continue. What it is a guarantee of is that you're going to come in and you're going to stand in your power. You're going to learn how to get into alignment. You're going to learn how to hear God's voice. And then you're going to no longer be available for things that don't serve you. So if you are working on your part and you're standing in your power and you're communicating like a queen, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm like, come back to me when you clean this, and this up. And then we can work on your man. We're so quick to be pointing the fingers and focusing on him over there while we got all this stuff over here. Right. No, sis, like let's work on how your delivery, and I'm not saying you, I don't know what your pot is. I'm just hypothetically saying, like, let's work on how you deliver when you're mad. Let's work on how you communicate when you need something from your man. Are you being, and I'm using me now. I was passive aggressive. I was petty. I was a B. I was
we're the same person. It's all good, sis.
Yeah. So okay. So that's why I was telling you, like, before we even can focus on him, like, give me 3 months. Like, let's just work on you. Let's work on your mindset, your heart posture, your spiritual maturity. And then when we start to do that, half of that stuff is going to fall away, because you're going to level up so much that you won't even notice things. That's the power of raising your vibration, that you no longer even notice things that are happening at lower frequencies below you. And then when you do notice them, you can handle them from a more mature place.
I think real quick. So
yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, or
we? Yeah, no.
So part of the issue with my husband is he's a psychiatrist, but like that's what he does. He's a doctor. But he's from like a very Caribbean, Jesus loving family, which, like, you know, we are too. Well, I'm Indian, but same thing. But his parents are very against him being like, very against him taking like anti-anxiety meds when he's studying for tests. So he has his like final board exam coming up, and his mom doesn't like me very much because she's like, oh my gosh, like you made this guy like move to LA, you made this guy, you know, like get married. I mean, like obviously I didn't make him do anything, like no one put a gun to his head. But I'm also very like, I guess forced him to grow up because he was like under his mom's thumb for so long. And then so when he got really stressed, he like hit her up, and that just created this whole situation where Saturday was like insane. And then Sunday, he just had like a depressive episode about how he's so lonely here, but he loves it here. And then it's kind of hard for me because I'm like, one, you're a psychiatrist, you know what happens when like your patients don't take your meds. So like, why would you stop? And two, it's kind of like, I don't want to baby him and be like, hey, did you take your meds, babe? Like, are you good? And then I'm just pissed at his mom, like, sis, stay out of my business. Go take care of your own man. Like, leave me be. Yeah. So it's just like a weird cycle. I mean, like things are pretty much back to normal now. And I mean, I was just like, you need to make more friends here. Cause I straight up asked him, I was like, do you want to live in LA? Like, what do you want to do? And he was like, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. Like, I'm really happy here. I love my job. So I'm like, why'd you listen to this crazy ass mom of yours?
Yeah. So perfect. I love this example. So many of us, and especially like it's something about being in the pro, and I'm just going to mute you while I'm talking because we're getting feedback, and then you can unmute. But something about in the pro realm, especially, it feels like the in-law drama is just like heightened for some reason, but many of us can relate to the in-law drama. And here's the thing, in my opinion, in-law drama is simply righteousness. It's just like, I'm this and I'm this. And it's like, again, this is a parent's son, and this is a son's wife. Both of you guys have your points of views, right? But here's the thing, when you plug in level 4 responsibility, one thing you're not going to do is change or control her. You're just not. You are not able to. And if you try, you're probably going to get more pushback from maybe even him, but especially her. So what happens is one of the things that you guys, this is in the modules deeper, but one of the parts that you'll learn in the modules is surrender. I call it the C method, SEA, surrender, embrace, accept. And what it is when a moment is happening. So when his crazy mom is irking you, guess what? You have the ability to say, I'm actually not available for this. I have to go study for med school. I'm going to go cook dinner. I'm going to go take a nap. Instead of us just not being available for stuff, we entertain it. For what? You're the wife. You're the wife. When it comes to how did I create this, it's like I created this because I was willing to entertain her shenanigans. If we know she's being shenanigans, embrace it, surrender it. Okay, embrace it, like, got it, not going anywhere, and accept it. Like, I can't change or control this. So what I can change or control is how I respond to it. So how I'm choosing to respond to it it's a non-factor. Now, the next thing that people usually say is, well, but what about when it's interfering with or me and my partner are always fighting about it? But oftentimes it's like, it's still just looking at it like, okay, well, what are we fighting for? So what you like, this is where I'm not going to be able to we can coach more into it right now, but I'm just saying, like, this is a dynamic situation. So there's layers to it, but essentially at the core, it's surrender and acceptance. It's accepting her for exactly who and how she is. And then instead of being like, your mom is, this is what she, and being right about her being these things, it's being like, that's how she is. So of course she said that. So like what worked for me, because I used to have major in-law drama, like hated the sister, was so frustrated with the mom, but just would be like, whatever, this is the mom's, I'm going to respect her, until I just surrendered to this is how they are. And then it was like, it became invisible to me because it didn't matter. It was like, oh, okay. Like, oh, you're trying to take me out. You're trying to talk about me. You're trying to make me look bad. I know the truth. I know who I am. I know I'm pure at heart. and I'm just not available to entertain it. So it has to diffuse out because there's nothing to fight back. But when we fight back with it to be right, we're just going to go to war forever. What are you hearing, or where's like the but, or like, is this penetrating, like, oh my gosh, or is it like, but what about, like, where are you at?
Part of penetrating, but also have some buts per usual. So one is my interaction with her, like, I'm like very respectful, like it's all chill. But the way that this goes down is like, and it's also like David being weird a little bit, is he will spend months not talking to his parents because they're just not close. And they're like weird dynamic. But then the second he gets
I'm gonna pause you for a sec, because remember earlier I said language is everything. So you saying it's a weird dynamic in itself is part of where you're creating this, because you have a judgment, you have a prejudgment of you're judging it. So when we judge, boom, how did I create this? I'm judging, and it says do not judge because it's falling right back on you. So why is that a weird dynamic? Because it's different than yours. And I'm like this too. I tend to judge things that are different than how I see them. But what if you were to change that? So I just want you to change the language and ask yourself, why is it weird? What's weird about it?
I think the reason I feel that it's weird is I was raised in like a very loving, like tucked in every night, like very loving childhood. And he was raised in like never had a Christmas tree, never had a birthday party, but like never like was tucked in, wasn't really like hugged a lot. So I guess like different childhood. I'm not saying his parents don't love him, but it's just very different from what like I experienced growing up, is a better way of putting it.
Yeah. So, but let's go deeper. So why was it a judgment? What makes it weird? That makes it a problem? Like, why was that an important context setting? And this is, I'm just curious.
Yeah, of course. And I think a lot of that translated into, so I'm his like first girlfriend, like it was just me. So when we first started dating and even into our marriage, like he didn't really understand how to like concepts, like when I go see my mom for the first time, like, you know, when I'm visiting her, I'll go give her a hug, like, which is just like normal for me. He like had to be like taught to do that, if that makes sense. Like when he comes home, like I had to be like, hey, when you come home, I would like it if you came and greeted me, or like when you come give me a kiss. Like he didn't automatically know that, which like I know it's like a little judgy of me too, but that's just like what I grew up with on every level. And even like when it came to like expressing himself, like with his family, just because they did not spend time together and they like barely like do anything together, like when they get into fights, they'll just go like nap it off and then pretend it didn't happen, which like he was trying to try that on me. And I was like, but we just got into a fight. Like, let's discuss. And he'd be like, but it happened like 6 hours ago. Why are we tripping off of it? And I'm like, boy, it's the same day. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. So I like what I like about this example you're giving is, let's say before you communicated, which that's powerful that you communicated to him, you needed him to come in and greet you, right? Let's say before you did that, if that was happening and you were internalizing it and taking it personal, like he doesn't love me, he doesn't care about me, he this, he that, whatever, that would be, how did I create this? Because you're creating a belief that you're interpreting his lack of coming to hug you meaning something personal, but you're aware enough to know that no, this isn't how he was raised, so that's not natural for him. And this is a perfect example where shoulding on people gets us in trouble, because we think people should do things because we would do them. People do not think like us. People do not think like us. So this is why I teach the way I teach. When you say the word should, I think you should cancel what you just said, period. Every time you say should, I want you guys to say, wait, what am I really saying here? And so what Rima's saying is, what I'm really saying is, I would like it if when you come home, you greet me, because that makes me feel loved and seen and supported. He shouldn't do that. It's what you would like him to do, because it's not natural for him. So I love this example you're giving, because it's a teaching moment to show us how we do life. We do this on so many spectrums. It's not even funny. And then I want to point out how you guys have polar opposites of upbringings. So again, going back to that diagram, you guys are interpreting every single thing, guarantee, very differently, hands down.
And I think also like birthdays were so important to me growing up, and his like parents forgot his birthday like 2 years in a row, which to me, like if my mom forgot my birthday, like I'm fighting her on site. Where like with him, he was just like, oh, they were just busy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm losing my mind. Like, what do you mean they're busy? Like she was in labor, she gave birth to you. But I just had to be like, you know what, like I can't change this woman, like do you? But I mean, back to what I was saying before. So like, I just feel like they had a different upbringing. And we just, like, I have a cool relationship with her. I mean, not cool, but like, I'm like cordial, you know, happy Easter, Merry Christmas, peace, love. But whenever David's really stressed, especially, and a lot of times, like, I'm sure things that I do are like heightened when he's stressed, like things that trigger him. And he shares it with his mom. It's like a shit talking on Rima special. And then she's like, pours a bunch of like stuff. God, like, she'll be like, well, God doesn't want you to ever have a conflict in your life. And God never created anxiety. It's the devil. So stop taking your meds and just go pray. Which like, I'm like, sis, what?
Okay, I'm gonna cut off again. And I know Asia wants to share too. So I'm only cutting off because of time. And I this is where I don't need the full story to coach into it. I already got it, right? So here's one, again, it's another example where you look, I just want you to know, like, step out of yourself for a second. And I'm gonna mute it again just for feedback. I want you to step out, and everyone, I want you guys to do this. Anytime this is what I call gossip. I believe gossip is repeating the history. God's like, gossip isn't just like, did you hear what such and such? That's like earthly gossip for sure. But I believe the gossip God was talking about in the Bible was, don't sit there and dwell on things that have already taken place. So right now you are and I know it's for sake of example, but I guarantee, because I coach people every day, and it blows my mind how often we do this. I do it too. I'm doing it right now in my relationship. So I know, but I believe this is the form of gossip that God's like, stop talking about it and do something about it. Go either show love or speak up, call her out or whatever. But what happens is we don't speak up and we don't move in love. We move in judgment. And then all we do is like, I don't know if you do this, but this was me before I did the work. Oh my God, I'm so frustrated. She now listened to what she did. And then she had the nerve. And can you believe? And who does that? And I know, I know. And it's like, you could have been creating business. You could have been speaking life into somebody. So God's like, don't waste your breath on things that are not productive, period. And this happens all the time. We are so guilty as humans of this. I think gossip is one of our biggest curses. And it's the easiest thing. The devil doesn't even have to do all this big stuff, because he's like, oh, they're just distracted by what someone did 3 weeks ago. Oh, they're distracted by what someone did 5 minutes ago. When you really see SEA, surrender, embrace, accept, you're seeing the truth. You're like, okay, I'm triggered, that bothered me. And now, because you have the awareness, you have a new tool in your toolbox. Like, oh, this is because his upbringing was different than mine. Surrender. Like, what? It's not even worth my energy. Like, that sucks. Or you could speak up about it. But this is the thing. People don't learn by being called out all the time. Sometimes they learn by just seeing it. Sometimes it takes us just being the love that they need. I know you were on last week, and I'm not sure if you caught the replay, but like we said last week with Alex, like, I was like, sis, like, when you feel like the world is against you and you don't fit into anywhere, you better believe you're the chosen one in that circle. You better believe you're the one that God's calling to be the light, to be the shift, to be the love. And so it's like, notice how much energy we will exert in talking about what just happened, instead of saying like, okay, in all of what that she did, I'm actually just judging her. I can't change it. And then, like, it's like we let ourselves get irritated. So what my question to you would be, what's really underneath that? Why are you so consumed with the drama? Because what is it distracting you from? It's distracting you from something because it's keeping you busy over here, because busy is buried under Satan's yoke. When we're busy, we're distracted from our divine order. So there's something in your divine order that you're running from.
Oh, distracting me from like my applications.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, and I also like, with also distracting me because I'm always liked. And I think that's also another like thing that I'm dealing with. And I'm like, I'm loved by parents, especially. So I'm like, why doesn't this worship the ground I walk on? But yeah, but definitely my application.
Well, in there, if you're triggered by her, she's triggered by you. And this is another beautiful thing about life is God brings us in, iron sharpens iron, and mirrors reflect. Like, we're either in each other's lives to sharpen each other or to reflect each other and to show. So there's something you and her are, if you open yourself up for it and start praying this prayer, God will reveal to you the lesson in her. And when you get the lesson, it's going to dissolve. And you're going to be like, whoa, I remember the day when she used to trigger the F out of me. And I don't remember the last time she's triggered me. But it's because you got the lesson. You haven't got the lesson yet. So you have to just keep praying for it. And you have to also embrace, she may never get the lesson. She's stuck in her ways. Like a lot of our parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, we're the chosen one in the lineage to shift the dynamic and break the cycles. So we can't expect them to do it. They may not. Go ahead, Asia, because I know you want to say something.
You just said it. But I'll give an example. So, being married for 8 years, the first half of my marriage, 4 years, I spent 4 years worried about my in-laws and completely stressing myself out, having anxiety attacks, having super just emotional outbursts, crying, just foolishness. Now that I look back on it, I was like, gosh, I wasted time. It took me like 4 years to finally look within myself and say, wait, why? Number one, why am I trying to control the situation? Number two, we all are different. I had the same problem. I'm not going to say problem. I had the same issue, I will say. I'm used to being liked. I'm used to people saying, oh, she's so pretty and da 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 da. And then I get married to this guy who's an athlete, and then his whole family did not worship me, if you will. So then I had issues with them. I'm like, why am I so, and I speak harsh. Okay. So it's for me. Don't take this the wrong way, but for myself, I'm like, why am I so arrogant? Why do I think I'm that great that I need everyone around me to worship me? Like, when am I going to love myself without any external validation? So it took me 4 years to love myself and to big myself up, to know how great I am, for me not to worry about what my in-laws say, how they feel. And do you know, now we have the best, I kid you not, we have the best relationship because, one, they appreciate my authenticity. When you show up yourself and not looking for anything else, people are going to love you naturally. Because, again, doing a lot of work on me, I realized that it wasn't about external validation. It was more about me validating myself and me being okay with not having people, having like a little pom-pom team behind me. And so once you do that, I guarantee if you're liked in other places, they're gonna like you. But no one is gonna like anything forced, because it's gonna feel like you're on eggshells or they're on eggshells and they don't want to come over to your house because it's uncomfortable. And it just was a whole banter situation. But now I spend more time with them than he does. So I just wanted to share that because I'm listening to you and I'm like, girl, like, it's a lot that I had to just shut everything off, stop talking about them, stop using my energy about every single moment it was something new that I complained about. Now they just call me and they're happy to speak to me. They love being around me. But it was work that I had to do with self. I had to do self-love. I had to just stop thinking and shut off the pettiness. I was over me being petty. I'm like, this is just foolish. And so I just wanted to share that because I can relate. But 4 years later, we're good, but it has to be work within self.
Thank you for sharing
That's
that.
beautiful. And so what I want to say, before I say that, I want to say the exercise I was going to do today, we're going to do it next week. So like we can just surrender to that because we're not going to rush through it. So I made that mental note, but I wanted to like, in case anyone's like, oh, we only have 7 minutes and we're supposed to, like, we're just going to move it next week. But what I want to say behind what Asia's saying is, bingo to it's a self-love journey. That's the name of the game. That's what life is all about, in my opinion. Life is all about returning to becoming whole. We were born whole. We were completely perfectly made in God's image, and then we started having fragments broken off of our wholeness, and now we're putting back the pieces. When you do self-development work, it's like when people, this is my problem with Christians who judge self-development work, or like they call it new age and stuff. When we say like I know the more I've done self-development work, the more I've known God, and the more I learn God, the more I learn myself. But that's just because in the journey of becoming your best self, you're understanding that you're just returning to your wholeness, which is God. You're returning to your perfect being that God created you to be. And like what Asia just said, all of those fragmented distractions are distracting us from focusing on why we're here. And we don't even realize how much time and energy we're exerting on things that have nothing to do with our soul's purpose. And the more you start to align to your soul's purpose, and realize that all of us, I don't believe a soul's purpose is a job or a career. I believe it's a characteristic. It's a way of being. So God is sharpening our integrity, our character, our patience, our kindness, our love, our forgiveness, our acceptance. He's constantly chiseling and pruning our character, not our doingness. Not, like we're going to go and create movements and businesses and all the things, but that's temporary. Even still, what people are going to remember is how you make them feel and who you're being in those moments. And so I wanted to give the self-love example to come behind Asia and in regards to what you shared, Rima, and give the example that someone in my family was recently like so frustrated over my dad. And I think I shared this story already, but I don't remember if it was here or another call, but it was over my dad. And it's like, we can't change or control my dad. When you fight with him, it's like fighting with a brick wall. So when I surrendered to accepting him for exactly how he is and not expecting him, see, a lot of us will do things like, he's an adult. He's a grown ass man. How he should be calling me on how could he forget my birthday? He's texting me on my birthday, asking me for money. And then when I say no, he's calling me a bitch. Oh, hell no. This is real life stuff that my dad has done to me. But when the old me was like, mom, and then brother, and then sister, and then I told the same story 15 times, buried under Satan's yoke, versus my dad can only love me to the extent that he loves himself. And he stopped loving himself when he was probably 5 years old. And one day God gave me the gift of talking to my dad, and my dad sobbed like a baby and told me that his mom almost killed him basically and was so abusive to him. And he felt like she hated him his whole life. So do you think that there maybe is a reason behind why he couldn't love his own children? He didn't love himself. So it's not, you didn't come here in your parents, you came in your parents' body, but like, you're not gonna, your mom and dad were here before you were, and you're gonna go by yourself, regardless of in the order. And what that means is it's your journey, period. So when we come back to be whole on ourselves, whoever it is you're expecting to get right, you need to ask yourself, why did God put that? What is he trying to teach you? What's the lesson? And then everything will surrender. But like Asia said, it all boils back down to self-love. When you love yourself, you start to move different because you start to understand. It's like those memes that go through Instagram saying like, people can't always handle your light. So they're going to try to bring you down, or they're going to try to dim your light. Not everyone's going to like you. When there's people who don't like you, you know you're standing in your truth. You know you're standing in your power, because it's intimidating, because it's causing them to either have to stand in theirs or not. And it's more comfortable for people to not, and then to attack you for doing it. So what happens is you have to be strong enough to say, I'm not bowing out just because she's mad. Her feelings are not my responsibility, but also knowing your responsibility is, well, why am I mad that she's mad? That's your responsibility. Let her be mad. You're mad because you're a people pleaser, and because you want her to like you, and you want her to worship the ground you walk on like everyone else does. Not everyone's going to do that. So that's how you created that, because you think she should do something that she's not doing. And so we have to realize that when we're expecting something from anything or anybody outside of us, we're looking to the wrong place. And when we're whole, when we go back within and we level 4 responsibility, which means go inward and say, God, what are you trying to teach me right now? What am I missing? What am I not seeing? We don't have time to focus on her over there or him over there. We're focusing on us. And then God works on us. And then that little conversation is forgotten about because it's irrelevant. So thank you guys. I'm just seeing the time. I want to see the chat. Oh, the therapy. Yeah. Thank you guys for your shares today. I hope that this was supportive for just your circumstances, where you're at in life, and continue to put this into practice. What I want you guys to do this week, for kind of like a homework, if you will, is to just notice your triggers from the perspective of what's underneath. How did I create this? What is the lesson for me? And just start to pay attention to that dialogue and start to activate that hall pass, as I call it, where we're not worried about the other person involved. We're just focusing on the 3 fingers, focusing on us, and just see what happens. And then I would love for you guys to share that in the chat on next week's call. And then next week we'll do the exercise that I was going to do this week, because I really do enjoy doing that. And we'll just keep the train going. So have a beautiful week, and thank you guys for showing up and participating and being here. Bye.